Hello and welcome back to episode 2 of She is the Moment. I hope you are all having a wonderful day. I am recording this on a Saturday. I don't normally work at the weekend, but I'm just so into this. I'm really enjoying recording this podcast, and my other half has taken our toddler out for cake and coffee. Obviously, the toddler's not having coffee. He is hyper enough as it is. He's taken him out for coffee, and I thought I'm going to capitalize on this moment and record another episode of the podcast for you. So let's get into it. So I think you're going to love today's episode and today's episode topic because everyone loves to hear all about the mistakes that we've made in business, and I have made quite a few in my time. But before we jump into that, it's time for our Freedom Win of the Week. And I want to read you out a little post that one of my clients shared in the group community. So she said, just sharing in here before I order some Prosecco on Deliveroo. Can you order Prosecco on Deliveroo? That is such a revelation. I did not know that. I want to show how messaging makes such a difference to sales. A lady slid into my DMs about one-to-one coaching asking for price and said she's on mat leave so only has a small budget. She said, keep seeing your posts and feel like they're talking to me. Well done, love that. We chatted about where she's at and her goals very casually, and I gave her the price. Chatting continued. Then I asked if she wanted me to explain how one-to-one works. She said yes, so I voice noted her. She signed up on the spot for £250 a month. This is genuinely my easiest sale since I started working with Shona, and I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing for her too. Such a nice feeling when it feels easy. And this is what I'm talking about. It's a Freedom Win of the Week because it felt easy, she said, from the moment this woman landed in the DMs to the moment she filled out the Stripe link and the money landed in this girl's account. It all felt so easy. And the reason it felt easy is because, as this person said, it was a real messaging win. Now, your messaging and your content really should be doing 99% of the heavy lifting when it comes to selling for you. So that when someone does drop into the DMs, it's literally a case of, let's get to know each other, let's have a quick chat, and here's the payment link. And this is exactly what's happened here. Your messaging is working really hard for you, so you don't have to do those icky techniques. You don't have to pressure someone into signing up or get people into contracts or, reduce your price or get them onto a sales call and use all these tactics that just don't feel authentic to you. Because her messaging is so strong and speaking, as this person said, so directly to her, then all the selling's done and it's literally a case of here's a price, here you sign up. So I am absolutely buzzing for this client of mine and it's such a lovely feeling. So well done. Okay, so let's crack into this week's topic. Top 5 mistakes I've made in business. Top 5, because I've definitely made more than 5. We're talking probably about 55 mistakes. I've made them all. I've made literally every single mistake. And I'm actually going to make it 6 mistakes because right now, as I'm talking, I'm just remembering one that I haven't actually included. So let's fire in. Number 1, giving as much value as possible. This is genuinely how I thought I should sell myself and my services. I have worked with a few business coaches in the past, and some of them have said that the way to build a business is to give as much value as possible. And so I took that and I ran with it. Now, I was posting literally every single day, and every single day I was giving. I was posting all the educational content. I was a pre and postnatal coach, so it was like facts about relaxing, top exercises to be doing in your first trimester, all about how to get more protein in your diet during pregnancy. And all of these posts would take me ages to make because they would include links and screenshots to studies so that everything was super research backed. I would have lots of evidence in my posts. I would make sure I would do so much research to make sure that everything I was posting was accurate, because that was really important to me. But not only my content, I was uploading 2 or 3 podcasts a week. I was sending out emails. I was on my stories doing Q&As. Now, I don't know if you've ever done a Q&A. I used to do them multiple times a week. They take ages because I would always get loads and loads of questions because I was great at doing the Q&As and I was giving out so much value. So I would always get tons of questions. And I would answer every single one with its own slide, maybe with multiple videos of me talking. So it would take me hours to conduct a Q&A. Now, the thing is with giving as much value as possible is when I would post this content, I would get tons of engagement. People were always liking it. I've never had so many likes and shares in my life. My posts always got shared. My posts always got comments, people saying, this is so helpful, thank you, I love this. Or maybe even someone commenting with like a really specific story of theirs, like, hi, I'm 41, I'm perimenopausal, I have pelvic, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I would coach them either in the comments or they would send me a message off the back of the post with really super intimate, personal and complicated personal details. And I would basically be coaching them in the DMs. And then the really frustrating thing is I would then try and talk to them about coaching and they'd be like, oh no, I'm not interested. I'm not looking for a coach at the moment. I've actually already got a coach. So they'd say something like that. So me giving as much value and posting solely educational content was turning my page into some sort of free resource. I was basically Wikipedia for pre and postnatal. I'm going to say one thing, it did actually really make me stand out as an authority within the space. Like, people really did respect me, especially other coaches. And because of that, at one point, I was thinking of doing a pre and postnatal course for personal trainers. I'm really glad that I didn't do that. But I was very much an authority within the space. So that is like one of the good things that educational content can do. It makes people know that you are an authority, you know what you're talking about, you walk the walk, you talk the talk. But it never translated to people actually signing up with me because I was not conveying the value of working with me. I was giving value, but not conveying the value, because there was actually no value because they were getting everything they needed for free from my page. Now, if this is really resonating with you, you're like, oh my God, this is my content strategy, this is what I'm doing, you need to do something about it right now. What I did find with my Shona Strong page, if you ever did follow me on there, is it was very difficult for me to then switch my style of content, switch my style of messaging. When I did switch it, like, yes, of course, I started to get way more clients than I ever did before. When I started to sell, when I started to post problem awareness content, perspective shifting content, agitational content, when I started posting things like that, I would get clients sign up. But it was still hard because I had trained those 6,000 people that followed me to expect a lot of free value, to expect Shona to turn up and give them something for free. So when Shona turned up and was like, hi, buy from me, they were like, I'm not here for that. It's giving very much ew. So I started a brand new page. When I started my new business, I started a brand new page. And from the day one, I was selling. I wasn't solely creating educational content. I was doing a lovely mix of lots of different types of content to move people along the buyer journey. And now people who follow me on that page know exactly what they're going to get. And I think they love it. I think they love it. I know you love it because you're here listening to this podcast. Okay. Second mistake that I made in business is that I had absolutely no boundaries whatsoever. I gave all of myself to my clients. So when people signed up with me, I would genuinely say, like, to my one-to-one clients, you can contact me 7 days. You can contact me anytime. And do you know what? They would contact me anytime. They'd contact me at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. They'd contact me at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. and expect to reply. And I would reply. I wouldn't wait until, the next day or the Monday afterwards. I would reply because I had absolutely no boundaries. And I was so worried that if I had boundaries, I would lose clients. Wild. I also had no boundaries because I shared a lot of really intimate details on my page and on my podcast. I had an old podcast. This was years ago. I started it and I shared my whole birth story. And at the time, it was what I wanted to share. I wanted to tell everyone my birth story. But I kind of feel now that is such a sacred story that not everyone needs to know. It's my story. And I think that's just maturing, isn't it? It's growing up and knowing that you don't have to give every part of yourself away in order to build trust and connection with your followers. That's really what I was trying to do. I was trying to be relatable. I was trying to build trust. I was trying to make people see that I was just like them. I was going through the same struggles as them. I was going through the same things as them. And I was the person to work with. But actually what this oversharing, what this zero boundaries on social media had, the effect was that people just thought of me as a friend rather than a coach, rather than someone to look up to and respect. I was absolutely friend zoned by my oversharing. So when I now take on new clients, I set boundaries and expectations from both of us. I make people sign contracts before they start working with me. And do you know what happens? I get so much better results from my clients because they respect me and my time. They know that my time is precious because I've said, you can contact me between this hour and I will reply within 24 hours. And that makes them realize that, okay, I am actually going to use the time that she is available. I'm not going to use the time that she's not available. And it makes just everyone feel so much more safer. Think about it yourself. Children love boundaries. Children really thrive. Children don't actually love boundaries, but children do actually feel safe and thrive with boundaries. And adults are exactly the same. So when you start some sort of working relationship, I think it's really healthy to say, this is what you can expect from me, and this is what I expect from you. And any deviation from that, that's not what we agreed. Okay? I love it. And I think that the reason that I now have these healthy boundaries is because I really do value my own free time, my own energy, my own space. I value my family's time, energy, and space. And so in order to enforce that, I have boundaries. And the thing is with boundaries as well, people think that boundaries are like you trying to control someone else, but actually boundaries are just you saying what you're going to do. And when you think of them like that, it's so much easier to have them. So if someone's pushing your boundaries, you can just say, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. Okay? Rather than saying, you're not allowed to push my boundaries. And on that topic, the third mistake that I made, this is a hill that I will die on, right? I shared too many pictures of my child. I shared too many. One picture is too many of my child. What we need to remember here, there's a few things we need to remember. Social media, we are kind of still at the start of it. We are at the start of it. So when I was a teenager, we didn't have social media, which I'm so glad for. Oh my God. I would have died, honestly. I would have had a very bad time because I was an exhibitionist as a teenager. I'm so glad that I'm still an exhibitionist, but I'm so glad I didn't have social media as a teenager. Whereas our children were born and will have their entire lives documented on social media. Now, I have gone through and made an effort to delete every single thing that I shared about my child. But literally, the day that he was born, his weight, the time, lots of people make pregnancy and birth announcements and they share the details all about that birth. So now the internet, because I'm imagining if you're a coach, you're public. The internet knows every single detail about your child, right? And then people share pictures all the way through that child's development. And some people even share them having a tough time. like children crying, stories about children having tantrums, stories about children pooing all over the place. That's information that you don't want your mum and dad to share about you. So we're now hearing stories about children whose parents were influencers, maybe not even influencers, maybe coaches like you and me, who are now suing their parents because their parents shared every single detail about them without their consent on social media. So for me, as a life first business coach, this is something that is so, so important to me. And I made this mistake too. If you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I have shared lots of pictures of my child on the internet. Time to delete. Go back through and delete it all, please, because it is not safe. There are so many people, weirdos, out there on the internet who could be looking at pictures of your child. And then also, like, I was watching this TV program about AI and how fraudsters, I love that, fraudsters are using AI to trick people into thinking that their children are on the phone. So it was this TV program, and someone had taken the voice of a young person, taken their voice, turned it. I'm showing my lack of technical know-how here. So they'd taken their voice, put it through AI, and pretended to be the child phoning their parents saying that they were stuck in a country with no money and they needed to send them money straight away. Now, this person wouldn't be able to do that if there wasn't tons and tons and tons and tons of footage of this young person's voice and face on the internet. But there was, so they were able to do it. So it's just things like that. It's personal safety. And if you're thinking right now, like, oh, but I want to show that I'm a mum, that I'm busy, that I'm going through the same things that they're going through, you don't have to actually physically show pictures of your child in order for people to know that about you. There's lots and lots of ways that you can do that. So I just think these things are sacred. The more that you put out there, the more that you are potentially leaving yourself up to things unsavory happening. So I now have a rule where I do not ever share any pictures of my child. I won't do that until he gives me permission. And actually, I won't do that until he's like over 18. So I'm really, really on top of it now with him. But over and top of it, I won't really share anything like super personal about my own life either. I remember, like, during my pregnancy, literally everyone knew every single detail. As I said, I put my whole birth story on a podcast. That shit's sacred. Keep that to yourself. Okay, the next mistake that I made was living in full-time scarcity mode. And what this then caused me to do was not be able to ever take time off. I lived in full-time scarcity mode because I never felt like bringing in clients was easy. I felt like every client that did come on board with me was the result of a fluke. Like, well, that must be, that wasn't me, that was a fluke. There was probably a lot of imposter syndrome playing there as well. But I lived in full-time scarcity mode, so I was never off the clock. And it's interesting because when I was working in the gym, but then perhaps like social media wasn't as big a thing back then, but when I was working in the gym, like as a baby PT, my work started and finished when I arrived at the gym and left the gym. And that was wonderful. That was great. Like, I was in my early 20s. Life was great. Life was easy and simple. But definitely it was social media and feeling always this obligation to post was what made me live in full-time scarcity mode. I also would create offers without my own self in mind. I would create offers with the goal of trying to give as much as possible to these clients. So it meant that I was teaching yoga at 8:00 at night when I'd been like scrabbling around trying to get my little person down in his bed in time for me to go and set up yoga, because I thought that I needed to do things like that. But that didn't suit me at all, because I don't know about you, if you've got a little person and you have just been on the go from the moment they've woken up and then you finally get them down, and bedtime sometimes is a bit of a struggle. You just want to like chill out and relax. But no, I was just constantly on. I was always worried about social media. I was always worried about my business. It would be the last thing I thought about at night and the first thing I thought about when I woke up in the morning. And that was the weekend too. Now, the worst part of this was that I didn't take a maternity leave. And I didn't take a maternity leave because I didn't know how to. Now, I'm going to talk about something that actually does make me quite sad, but I lived in such full-time scarcity mode that I worked all the way through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Like, I didn't take time off that entire time. And I've told this story several times before, but I'll tell you again, this is something that I used to glorify. This is something that I used to be quite proud of, like it was a little badge of honor. But actually looking back, it makes me so sad thinking that I felt that I had to do that. And it just so happened that I gave birth on check-in day. It actually makes me laugh thinking about it, but I gave birth on check-in day. So I was too busy, obviously. I was too busy giving birth to answer my check-ins. I was mooing away in the birthing pool while my client check-ins were dropping into my inbox. And then, brilliant, had my baby, did the hospital bed thing, was lying in the hospital bed. And I don't know if you've ever had a baby, you'll know that like you do not sleep. You do not sleep that first night because you're just so wired. And you're also probably in a ward full of other people. But my little baby, tiny, like 8-hour-old baby, was lying in his little cot thing. And I thought, do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to reply to those client check-ins. So I whipped out the laptop hours postpartum and started replying to check-ins. Now, did I mention in those check-in replies that I had a 6-hour-old baby lying next to me? No, I did not. I was replying to check-ins. Oh, I'm so sorry that you're struggling with your fat loss this week. So let's talk about how we can make this work this week. Bloody hell. Like, that makes me so sad that one of the biggest, most important things had ever happened to me in my life. And all I could think about was my work and making sure that I replied to those clients. Let me tell you, that will never, ever happen to me again. And I will do everything in my power to make sure it doesn't happen to you too. And I see it. I still see it. I follow coaches who have just had babies and they are not off. They do not miss a beat with social media. They post, then their baby's born, then they post again. Like, they literally do not stop. Turning up on the stories every single day, sharing every single moment of their life. And it's because they live in scarcity mode. So now I am so confident, cool, calm, collected in my business. I am so far away from living in scarcity mode. In fact, I live in this space of abundance. It feels so good, and I'm getting excited because it does feel so good to live in this space of abundance. What I mean by that is I fully believe that clients come easily to me. I know exactly what I need to do to bring in the next client. It's never a fluke. It's always as a result of the work that I put in. And actually, it does feel easy now. It does feel like clients do come easy. And it feels wonderful. I work 4 days a week. Obviously, I just told you that I was recording this podcast on Saturday, but this doesn't feel like work. But generally, I work 4 days a week. I start work as soon as I drop my little boy off at nursery, and I finish half an hour before I go and pick him up. It is wonderful. Right, we've got 2 more. I didn't know how to have a paid maternity leave. I actually just didn't know how to do that. So I let a business of mine totally burn to the ground, which is so sad. Now, if you were an online coach during lockdown, you'll have probably absolutely killed it. We all did. It was amazing because there were no other options. I absolutely killed it in lockdown. I was fully booked with clients, and I was also super proud of myself because I had started an online yoga studio. So if you didn't know that about me, I'm a yoga teacher. Namaste. I had an online yoga studio, and how it worked was there was 4 classes a week. People joined, paid £70 a month for a membership, to get those 4 classes. I had tons of people inside it. It was amazing. And I got pregnant at the end of 2020. And it was fine. I had a generally really good pregnancy and I was super fit and mobile all the way through pregnancy. So I just kept going, even though I was teaching power yoga. All about the abs, all about the upper body pressing. And here's me with a big old tummy doing all these yoga classes. But anyway, I didn't know how to keep going with the yoga business when I wasn't there. So I taught yoga all the way through to about 36 weeks. I was absolutely huge. I think I had maybe replaced a couple of the power yoga classes for some yin yoga classes, but I still definitely had at least one power yoga a week. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to keep that business flourishing because there absolutely was lots of things that I could have done in order to continue with that business, have my baby, take some time off afterwards, and then take it back and continue to scale it and grow it. But the really sad thing is that I stopped at 36 weeks. I told all my members of my yoga studio that I was stopping and I might bring it back, I might not. And they all got me a lovely gift and a big card and delivered it to my house because obviously we're still in lockdown. And that was it. That was it. Over. It finished. And that is so sad. But it was also 3 years ago, and I have learned since then how to have a paid maternity leave. Now, I mean a paid maternity leave, and I don't mean just like 6 weeks. I mean several months paid maternity leave. There is ways that you can do that. If you are a self-employed person and you think, oh no, how can I have a paid maternity leave when I'm a coach? Because surely I need to be coaching. There are ways and means that you can have lovely monthly recurring income. You can have passive income. You can have money landing in your bank account while you're sat watching Sex and the City breastfeeding. And that is what I plan to do if I ever plan to have another baby. Final mistake. If you're still here, thanks for listening. I actually never believed that I could be a successful person. Like, I just didn't think that success was in my future. Like, that just wasn't for me. Now, if you have only just followed me in unapologetically Shona era, as in you've not known me as fitness coach Shona, then you'll be like finding that hard to believe because I am just such a big ego. Like I am so confident. I am so in love with myself. And you'd be like, how are you not like that? I wasn't always like that. I've had a lot of help and a lot of therapy to get me to this position. But the shift for me was I used to think that I was obviously surrounded by people who were successful and made tons of money and had loads of clients and had 6-figure businesses and were millionaires. I know people in the fitness industry who I am pretty close to who are millionaires, right? So I knew those people, but I was just like, that's not me. I'll never have that. I will never have that sort of business. I am not that sort of person. I will always struggle. I will always be on the income roller coaster. I always have inconsistent income. And then I remember the moment that I signed up with my business coach. So I have a business mentor and I've had her for, I'd say probably almost a year now. And I'm going to stay with her for a long time because she's amazing. And she has absolutely helped me so much. But I said to her, I just want consistent 5K months. That's all I want. I just want consistent 5K months. And at this point, I hadn't started this business coach yet. And she's like, yeah, we'll get that. It was the way that she was like, yeah, obviously, you'll get that. That made me be like, oh, okay, right. Well, that's a shift. No one's actually ever told me that. No one's actually ever said, Shona, I believe in you. Shona, you can have this. And that was wonderful. And I know, obviously, I'd paid her a lot of money at that point. I believed her. I was like, okay, this person believes that I can have consistent 5K months. And then after working with her for about 3 months, I went and hit a 10K month. And I was like, honestly, I was like lying on my back on the floor. Like, I just could not believe it. I could not believe that me, little old me, had made £10,000 in a month with my own business. And so then I kept hitting that. Like, I've hit that multiple times now. And I think it's genuinely the belief that that is now in my scope. As soon as you start to believe that, everything else comes easier because you believe it. So then you start to move towards the things that get you there. You stop making excuses for why you aren't there yet, and you start looking for solutions that will get you closer to that goal. I was so stuck in this sort of box that I'd created for myself. I was stuck in victim mode. I was like, nah, there's something wrong with me. I just didn't believe it for myself. And as soon as I started to look for solutions, think above the line, think, what can I do to make 5K consistent months feel closer to me? What can I do to make 10K months my normal? What can I do to have a 6-figure year? And as soon as you ask questions rather than making fixed statements, because that's what I was doing, I was making a fixed statement, you are never going to have success in your business. You will always find that hard. That's a fixed statement. When I ask the question, what can I do to make consistent 10K months feel easier? That allows scope for growth. So as soon as I did that, that was when I hit success. So I really hope that these mistakes have helped. The thing is, if you are making these mistakes right now, it's only a failure if you give up and you don't do anything about them. Now, I'm not a failure. I am so far from a failure. I'm a success because I made the mistakes and because I was actually able to grow from them. I was able to look at them and be like, I don't want it. I don't want to do this anymore. This is not how I want to live. I want to make a change. Let that frustration drive you forward. Let it light a fire underneath you so that you finally make a change in your life and business. Okay, membership question of the week. Time to dive into the Liberation Lounge and find out what people are asking. Okay, here we go. I'm struggling as I want to reach a different client type. I've got my group mum community whose stage of life is very much fit it in as and when and baby steps towards progress, but still getting progress. As lovely as it is supporting these, I want to get some ladies who are past this stage and ready to commit consistently with my programs and see better results. But my problem is I don't know how to word this and reach these people in my posts. And the more I try, the more overwhelmed I get. So I guess what I'm asking is, when you are trying to target a different than usual ideal client, where would you start to allow yourself to think more about the content for these people? Okay, this is a really good question, and I have a lot of clients who are pre and postnatal coaches, and it can be quite challenging speaking to lots of different people, because essentially if you're a pre and postnatal coach, you might be speaking to pregnant people, you might be speaking to early postpartum, you might be speaking to postpartum 2 to 3 years, you might be speaking to mums who have older children. So that's in your head 4 different people. But what you need to think about is that those people are essentially all the same people, but just at different stages of their journey. And they will all have quite similar problems. They will all have quite similar challenges, but what they will feel is slightly different symptoms because they're at a different stage. They'll also maybe have different goals as well. So you just need to be really clever with your content. Say you were a one-to-one coach and you wanted one-to-one clients who were within any one of those 4 different types of people. We just need to be clever with our content in that we're speaking to a problem that maybe they all share, but also we're acknowledging that each of these different people is having a slightly different version of it. So it is absolutely possible to do this. But what this person's actually asking, what she's saying is that she has been working with people who are very early postpartum. So we're talking in the first 6, 12 weeks. And having gone through that stage of postpartum, having a coach is great, but also having a coach who totally understands that you are dealing with lack of sleep. You're dealing with maybe being sat for 12 hours a day breastfeeding. You're maybe dealing with a lot of hormones. You're also dealing with perhaps like a real shift in your body image. So the level of support that these people are needing and the type of work, the type of service that you provide is different from someone who maybe like myself has an older toddler who has been postpartum for a very long time now, who has different goals, who maybe wants to like work a lot harder. So we just slightly shift the tone of our messaging. So it's the same person, but maybe they want something different. Maybe they want faster results. Maybe they want more intense results. Maybe they need to be spoken to slightly differently. And this actually can be really, really exciting for you, because I think that a lot of people, there is this real trend in the fitness industry right now to have a very softly approach when it comes to speaking to their ideal client, and, you know, like accepting the minimum dose effective, speaking like in almost in a quite condescending tone, like, you know, something's better than nothing. And, you know, you can do like a 10-minute home workout. That's fine. When we know that that's not going to get that person results, it's actually going to waste their time and their money and actually your time too. So if we speak to someone who is maybe a bit more empowered, and maybe speak to them in a way that's going to empower them too, and tell them that if they actually want to get results, then they need to work hard. Just like you in your business, like I bet that in order for you to get to where you are right now, you've had to work hard and you've had to make sacrifices. So why are you living like that and expecting other people to not make sacrifices? In order to have the business that you have, you've probably had to get up early. You've probably had to do a lot of planning. You've probably had to say no to things. So speaking to your client in the same way, like, look, if you want to get these results, if you want to build a bum, if you want to lose some fat, if you want to get stronger and fitter in the gym, then you're going to have to go to the gym, and you're going to have to do it when you don't want to do it. And you're going to have to work hard and push yourself hard. That is fun. That is calling in someone who is ready to take action. That's calling in someone who is actually going to get results and going to be so much more fun to coach. And interestingly enough as well, even when I was very early postpartum, I was someone who did a lot of planning of my meals. I had a very structured return to exercise. I was always hitting the gym rather than like, you know, oh, I'm just going to do it at home. I would be like, Paul, you are taking the baby right now for an hour and I'm going to the gym by myself. And I would do my rehab exercises on the floor. And I would make sure that I ticked every single one off, and I did 3 to 4 sessions a week as soon as I could. So remember that not everyone who is early postpartum is living like a hot mess. Some of us aren't. Some of us are wanting to be treated like the athletes that we want to be from the very start. So maybe what you are worrying about is not making someone feel bad. But we also need to remember that if we tell people that they can do not very much and get results, then we're actually lying to them. That's my thoughts. That's my thoughts. I hope you've really enjoyed this episode of the podcast. I've really enjoyed recording it. It's quite a long one. Apologies, or not apologies, because I am in your head having a lovely time, and you're probably having a lovely time too. So if you ever want to ask me a question to be discussed on the podcast, you can contact me on @unapologetically Shona. Please, please, please rate and subscribe and follow the podcast. Rate it 5 stars, obviously, because I'm a brand new podcast and I want lots of people to hear it and benefit from it. Sending you all the good vibes if you do that. Have a wonderful day, and I will speak to you next time.